Welcome to a Parallel Project Training, APM Project Management Qualification podcast based on the APM Body of Knowledge 7th edition. You should be using this in conjunction with our e-learning, podcasts, and potentially a tutor-led course. For more information, please visit www.parallelprojecttraining.com.
Right, welcome to another Parallel Project Training podcast. This podcast is based on the Body of Knowledge 7th edition. My name is Jan Underdown, and across the table we have Paul Neighbour.
Hello, Jan.
And how are you doing today?
Yeah, good.
Excellent. This podcast is going to be covering change control, and the learning outcome we're going to be covering is looking at different stages of a typical change control process, such as request, initial evaluation, detailed evaluation, recommendation, update the plans and implementation. Mm-hmm. Deep breath. Okay. So, Paul, what are changes and why do we need to control them?
So changes are really important if you're doing a traditional life cycle, because we've got this concept of a baseline scope or a baseline plan. Mm-hmm. And I think change is often associated primarily with the scope.
Right.
Because you can usually easily measure time. Mm-hmm. You can usually easily measure money,
right,
and budget, but scope is more difficult. So if I say we're going to launch a new website at Christmas and we're going to spend £50,000, the scope of that is, well, what is we actually delivering? So it's not so important in an agile approach, because an agile approach, we're going to time box it and develop the...
And that's the iterative life cycle.
Yes, the iterative life cycle. So we're going to develop that scope progressively.
Right.
But if we're baselining the scope in a traditional approach, we need some way of evaluating changes when they occur.
Right.
So if we don't do that, then we just take on the changes, then we'll find that our scope creeps and we get increases of scope, which will gobble up resources and time and money.
Right.
And so we'll probably end up delivering something that the customer doesn't want.
Right. So it's primarily on scope, but if changes to time or money actually happens, like the budget gets
that's
pulled.
Right. The budget may get amended, or the sponsor may say they want it quicker or slower. And the project that I'm working on at the moment, the sponsor phoned me up and said, we're putting it back 3 months. That was quite interesting.
Right.
So I can't decide whether that's good or bad. Give me more time. That means the cost might go up because there's more opportunity to fiddle with it.
Yes. And the thing is that we need to make sure people understand the impact of having those changes. If you want that, and it's really important, this is going to have the effect on the time and the money.
Yes.
In terms of that?
Yes.
Okay. So is there a good time to make changes during projects?
As soon as possible.
As soon as possible. Because
they cost you less. The sooner you can do the change, the better it's going to be.
Right. Because further down the project, it's going to cost us more to actually change stuff.
The cost of change goes up as time goes on, really.
Okay. So in typical type of process, so I want to change to my project, what would I do?
So there's actually... so in the book, it describes it here, really. So should we just walk through the...
Yes, of course. Yes.
So usually you would record that change request in some form of change log, so it would arrive. It can come from a number of places. A change request might come from a user, might come from a sponsor, might come from one of the team, an idea. The first thing to do is write it down.
Right,
capture it. To make sure that we've captured it and we've captured who raised it and what the details are. We then would probably want to do a quick review of it or initial evaluation of it, because we may have looked at that change previously.
Yes.
And rejected it.
Right.
Or it may not be practical at all. It may be, it's like a pipe dream.
Yes.
So we'll do a quick evaluation to see whether or not that change has been reviewed. Then I expect before we go to the sponsor and say we'd like to implement this change, we need to bottom out how much it's going to cost, what the impact would be in terms of timescales and overall risk to the project delivery.
Yes.
So we'll do that detailed evaluation. Then we'll take it to the sponsor and say, well, I think we should do this, or I don't think we should do it, or I think we should defer it.
Right.
Get a decision.
Right.
Then re-baseline, re-update the plans so that everybody knows what's going on.
Okay, and that would involve the configuration management, the version control, document control stuff we spoke about in another podcast.
Indeed. And then we'd implement that change.
Right. Okay. So would we actually implement all changes requested, do you think?
Only if they So how would the sponsor decide whether to approve a change or not? Well, they'll do some assessment of the cost and the benefit.
Right.
So they might say, the sponsor might randomly say, I'd paint that wall green, not blue.
Why? Why do you want to paint it blue or green?
Because they woke up this morning and decided they want it blue, not green.
No, I don't think so. We just want all the paint.
Yeah, well, that's right. So if we're early in the project and it can change it and it's no cost, then we might change it. But if you go back to the sponsor and say, well, we've looked at it, it's going to cost £50,000 and put the project back 2 weeks. Do you really want to change the colour of the wall?
No.
No.
Okay.
But you need to give the sponsor that choice.
Yes.
So you need to go back to them and say, we could change it. This is the consequence.
Cost, yes,
do you
the
want,
consequence,
do you want to go ahead or not?
And of course, you've got things like impact on the scope, perhaps, especially in requirements. We change one little thing could actually have a huge effect on the whole functionality.
Yeah, that's right. And it may not be immediately apparent to the sponsor or the user that asking for that small change could have a significant impact. Make that window 5 inches taller could end up changing the structural steel that costs millions of pounds.
Yes. Some bigger projects have change boards. What do they do then?
Change board is where you usually bring together the senior stakeholders. So usually the supplier, usually the user, usually the sponsor, and they will consider the change as a group.
Right.
So it's also called a project board or steering group.
Steering group, yes.
And some projects have them separately. There's also this concept of a change freeze.
Yes, like those.
The change freeze is like a snowball in summer. Never actually. So that's the idea. Well, we've got far enough now. We have to get on and build this software.
No more changes.
Build no more changes. That's going to freeze the changes and get on with it.
Yes.
Usually lasts about a week in my experience. Before someone says.
Yes. So going back to the relationship with change control and configuration, is they work hand in hand, isn't it? Because we need to actually look at the status of the products, do the impact analysis across that. Then any changes which are then recommended or approved, then you're updating any documentation. Make sure everybody gets the new release.
The new specifications.
Yes. Yeah, because we've actually had horror stories where architects have been, or the constructions have been building to the wrong drawings. The architects haven't reissued the drawings and things. So, yes.
The book also talks about change freeze. So what are the advantages, disadvantages of change control? So the advantage are you get a fixed scope, you get control of the scope, you get a decision process to...
Yes, decision, authority to change.
Gives responsibility to the sponsor to make those changes. Difficulties, I won't call them disadvantages, I'd call them difficulties with change control. It's just slow.
It can be, especially going to go to a change board.
People don't like spending money. It can take time to do the evaluation. People argue about the evaluation. And in the meantime, you don't know what the blooming heck you're doing.
No.
Are we painting that wall green or are we painting it blue?
Do you find people sometimes circumnavigate the process, try and get around it, not use it? Oh, go on, just add this.
They navigate, yeah. Well,
just do this. It won't cost us anything.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they will. If while you're here, could you just do this?
Yeah, it won't take much time.
I could tell you about the local electricity board have been doing some changes to our power supply. They've been burying the cables. We've got overhead wires, and they knocked down a wall. Outside our house, I phoned them up and said, "Could you come and fix the wall that you knocked down?" And they was going, "Well, who's going to pay for that change then? Is that a contract variation? Who's going to?" Oh
yes, yeah. What's the difference between something that's not conformance to a?
So that's one of the difficulties of change when it gets locked into a contract, and so you end up with contractual disputes and arguments about money.
Yes, who pays for it?
Who pays for it? Yeah.
Yes, especially when they have any requirements which are assumed.
Yes.
Yes, they're not, explicit. Okay, I think we've done change control and cover what we need to actually cover. But it can be the Achilles heels of lots of projects.
Yeah, I think that's why people, where they can, are moving to more agile techniques.
Yes,
so where you
especially when clients are talking in terms of outcomes. We don't know what the requirement actually is in terms of the output of the project. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Paul. That was very interesting.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast and found it informative. To find out about our training courses, e-learning or tutor-led course, please go to www.parallelprojecttraining.com.